So when you're cooling down after training, it's a good idea to take a meditative stance. So often people meditate sitting down. Doesn't have to be done that way, but it's the most accessible and probably useful way of doing it. Of course, these principles can be applied in any posture, really, from standing to lying down. We'll take the sitting posture, which I'll just go through briefly. So there's a firm contact with the sitting bones on the floor. The sitting bones are at the base of the pelvis, base of the spine. You'll feel two bones that you that you sit on. There's no other way to put it. Self-explanatory in a sense. The legs are crossed, like so. You can take the lotus position also, which isn't too complex, but it involves having the heel in contact with the sacrum, with the base of the spine near the groin, like so, and folding one leg on top, like so. Now, I don't have the greatest flexibility, I'm afraid, these days, or I never did, in fact. This position helps circulate the energy upwards and around the whole body, obviously. So knees down from this position. Take a moment to center yourself. I've just finished training, so I'm feeling as though I'm still in the process of slowing down, so bear with me. Breathing deeply from the sitting bones, the sacrum, the hara center. Breathing in through the nose. All the way up to the tip of the nose, and then out. So with this breathing, there's a sense of being rooted to the floor. The pelvis is slightly lifted as it sinks down, so there's a grounding as well as a lift. This connects with the rest of the body. The chest is elevated and stretched in order to elongate the spine. The neck is also stretched and reaching upwards. The chin is down. If I just remove the microphone for a moment. Chin is down and connects with the thoracic spine and the chest. The diaphragm is given room for full expansion and contraction. The in-breath is the one with which you sink down with. This pulls the diaphragm down, and as the diaphragm contracts, this pulls the hara center and the abdomen upwards. So the usual experience of breathing is during the out breath there's a contraction of the hara center and a lift of the pelvis and abdomen during the inhale. There's a sinking down of the abdomen into the ground. It's kind of like a big sack of potatoes being dropped on the floor and spreading slightly. That's the sense that you get when you're sitting in these postures as you expand. So the inhale is expansion. The exhale is contraction of the abdomen. So it's inhalation, exhalation expansion and contraction. As you sit and tune into the breath, it's a rhythm that you'll soon feel. It's very difficult to explain properly and experience that at the same time, so you'll have to bear with me here. Now, generally speaking, the inhalation is deeper in the evenings. This is to draw energy in for restoration of the system. Exhalation is deeper and more easy to tune into and obtain in the daytime, which is for work. So exhalation, as in martial arts, is for work, effort. So that's the best time to do that is the morning up until midday. After that, there's a predominance of inhalation. So these are things you can focus on in meditation, in relaxation. So don't be surprised if you find those tendencies to be apparent. So there's a lifting of the chest, there's an elongation, there's a sinking down into the floor and a lift at the same time. So there's a lift and a rooting. So this forms the basis of balance, stability, rooting, heaviness, sinking, and there's the corresponding elevation, lifting, expansion, and elevation. So it's a combination of factors which form a unity. There's stability as well as expansion. There's yin and there's yang. There's concentration of the energy from the hara. There's circulation, expansion of it from the solar plexus here, which is around the level of the diaphragm. And the neck is long. The tongue reaches to the roof of the mouth. This connects the throat to the brain centers. The throat is the gate through which the energy transmits to the brain, and vice versa. So the neck transmits the energy from the lower centers to the higher brain centers fairly well. Obviously, to do its work, it needs to be long. There needs to be a certain tension there for increased circulation, but not a tight kind of not constricting tension, more of an energizing tension. Imagine you're holding a sword. If you grip it too tight, there'll be too much tension there, won't be any circulation. However, if you grip it just tight enough, but to allow a flowing sense, then the energy can transmit through without it being debilitative. So it's the same with the neck. There's a concentration which you can tap into by just focusing on listening inwardly. And if you just focus on listening, not to anything in particular, there might be some pleasant bird sounds or music that can help, but just to listen without an object, and then you've reached a very high point in meditation if you manage to achieve that. So the eyes are for seeing, but you can also see inwardly with the eyes. At the level of the ears, there is the third eye, which is the inward seeing eye. And just below that, there's the third ear in the throat I've just mentioned, which allows you to listen inwardly. So the two corresponding together generate a kind of an inner sense, which is kind of like a third eye. It's not necessarily a visual thing, but it's there are different ways of seeing and perceiving than just visual images. So there's a sense of inward seeing and inward listening in meditation. So I've been through some of the points of posture. From there you can do the stretches. I won't go into them now, but any stretch, whether that's taking the legs out and stretching the groin, you still try to maintain this connect, and that will allow you to keep within your own limits. And the moment you feel like you're losing connection with the breath, that's the time to ease down, or at least recognize your own limitations. So to recognize limitations doesn't mean to accept them and indefinitely. We recognize our limits so that we don't push ourselves too far, further than we can manage. So that will differ depending on the individual.